Hey everyone, welcome to the Zzzax of Life podcast, a Marvel podcast from Laughing Place. Episode number 86. Every time we end an episode, I always forget. I realize, I totally forgot to say the number of the episode. I just want to highlight where we're at here. Can't believe I forgot to mention episode Ocho Cinco last time, but
I know. You must be so sad.
I'm Mike Mack. That's Kyle Burbank.
Hello.
How's it going, Kyle?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good. We have a lot to talk about. Obviously, we did not stick to our regular schedule. If you listen to our last episode, we were planning to do bi-weekly episodes, meaning every other week, not twice weekly. But we didn't get to stick to that because other things got in the way.
Things we're going to talk about?
A Hong Kong trip, that we will be discussing. So today's episode won't be quite the usual. We don't have a guest. We don't have a draft. We do still have a surprise game that Kyle was not expecting. So that will be at the end of this episode here. But we're going to be breaking down 3 episodes of X-Men 97. And before we do that, we've got a surprising amount of news to get through because as I was gathering today's show doc, I was surprised at how much we had to catch up on. So let's dive right into it. And as I said, we'll start off here with a recent trip I took to Hong Kong Disneyland, which was to preview, or actually, to see the start of the Marvel season of superheroes over there. Kyle, you've been to Hong Kong Disneyland. I mean, I know this. I'm letting the people know this, but I know this because I asked you for so much advice, and it was very helpful. So thank you.
No problem.
But so, you've been, it's so weird because when Avengers Campus was announced, we knew it was going to 3 different parks, and they've got sort of Avengers Campus in air quotes for those of you listening, which is really just like a few buildings in Tomorrowland. What was your, were you there after that opened? Or yes, you did, because you did Nano Battle.
Yeah, so the first time I went was when Shanghai opened. So we popped down there both so that we could, not mark another park off our list, but then also because the way the visas worked, if you went, it was actually cheaper to book a flight to Hong Kong than it was to pay someone to go get a China visa for us. So anyway, so that was our first trip. The second trip, I went out there for when Iron Man Experience opened. I went out there for that. And then also went out there for the opening of Nano Battle. So yeah, I've done them all. I like the Stark Expo area. I think it's really cool. So it's technically a part of Tomorrowland, but it feels, somewhat separated.
Yeah.
And it is integrated with the Avengers campuses. Like even before Avengers Campus opened in Walt Disney Studios Park, there was a part where they were doing the stage thing, and it cut to the Iron Man meet and greet at Stark Expo in Hong Kong. So there was already sort of an integration. So it's still part of it, even though it's not called Avengers Campus, which I think is pretty cool. And there's cohesion between the 2 attractions in the land. And I'm sure that there was cohesion with the other stuff that you got to see.
There was, yeah. And I was impressed because it is weird, like I said, that it's not its own thing. It's just a part of Tomorrowland, but they do a really, really great job. You still get the music loops of both. And actually, I think the Avengers Campus music loop over there is like more diverse. Like go through a bunch of different tracks from different films. But you still get the Tomorrowland music too. And there's just a perfect wall of sound that separates the two. So they do a really good job there. Yes. So I was there for Marvel's season of superheroes. And that specifically entailed 2 brand new shows, both titled Find Your Superpower, which is a little bit weird, but
yes.
Battle for Stark Expo, a daytime stage show, and Battle in the Sky, a nighttime drone show. Both were really cool. Both involve Arnim Zola and Hydra, as he is the villain of that land or area in general, because he, like you said, he is a factor in both the Iron Man Experience and in Ant-Man and the Wasp Nano Battle. And so they carry that story out through these 2 new shows as well. So they were both really, really cool. You can check them out in their entirety on Laughing Place's YouTube channel. If you're watching live, don't do that now. Just wait until we're done with our show first. But you can do that anytime. Battle for Stark Expo was it's kind of funny because I feel like it probably exposes some of the issues with the show at Disney California Adventure, because the stage combat is less than ideal, and to see it so close up, kind of takes away from it a little bit. But it's still really cool to see all the characters get on the stage in one place, and they do some cool. I won't spoil the show if you don't want it spoiled, but they do a cool bit with the audience. So it was fun. It was a fun show. The nighttime show, though, is really that's the big draw right now. Battle in the thing in theme parks, as we're seeing more and more. And this was really cool. I think we've seen more impressive drone shows elsewhere, but
scrubbing through your video, yes, I think that's. Yeah. I think upstaged by the one at during an Angels game like the next day.
Right. Yeah, so it was weird to see that, but it's more than a drone show, and it was. I will say this too, probably the hardest event that I've ever had to record video of, because it was behind a building as far as the drones are concerned. It's up there, and then you look like a complete 180 to your left, and that's where the characters are out on stage sort of telling the story of what's happening. So you don't know where to look. So apologies for in some parts.
It's not like you flew halfway around the world just for that.
Right.
So, capturing that is kind of the whole point. So it's good that it was hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm sure you weren't stressed at all.
No, not in the least bit. I was very welcoming of the challenge. No, it was fun. And it was funny kind of seeing everybody struggling to record it, though, too, because at one point I look over back at the drones and I'm looking at people's faces as they're watching the characters, and nobody knew what to record. So it's definitely an immersive show. Like, you are surrounded by it when you're watching there. So it's a cool show. I recommend checking it out, again, on the Laughing Place YouTube channel. Find Your Superpower season of superheroes is going on now over at Hong Kong Disneyland. It also entails a whole lot of new food, which we got to try quite a bit of. They way overfed us at that event, I will tell you that. It was a lot of good food. And some new merchandise, which they have. Hong Kong Disneyland is now the exclusive home to a few new Marvel items from Hot Toys, which is pretty cool. They also have 1-to-1 scale statues of Iron Man, Captain America, and Ant-Man in their shops as well. So really cool stuff to check out there. So yeah, again, Marvel season of superheroes going on now at Hong Kong Disneyland. Right before I left, we got some exciting news in the MCU. We saw a new Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. I think this was before I left, right? I don't even remember anymore. Time is all blended together. And again, it's been 3 weeks since our last show, so there's a lot of stuff that just happened over those 3 weeks. But what did you think of this new Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, and some of the language that they included?
I was gonna say, I was surprised. So, some background: I used to work at a movie theater, so I know all these nerdy things. But we just kind of grew accustomed to used to see that green screen that came on before trailers and stuff like that. And that was a green band trailer. That meant it was approved by the MPAA to play in front of all audiences. But occasionally, every once in a while, you'd get a red band trailer, which had the same screen, but it was red and said restricted audiences only. And you'd only show it on R-rated movies. And our theater, I think, barely even did that. So, this practice traveled over when they were first started uploading trailers onto YouTube and stuff. They'd still have that. Or, at least put in parentheses like red band trailer. So I didn't know until, the first one is said, you're like, oh, I guess this is a red band trailer. So that's all. It was just nerdy of me to be like, oh, I'm surprised they didn't call that out, because this isn't like a trailer that's going to show in movie theaters, which is what a trailer really is. Right.
Yeah, no, it was definitely weird. And Jeremiah pointed out as well that it was interesting that I think he said D23 and one of the other Disney social handles shared the trailer with all of this language included on their socials. So
I guess you know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, I guess so. But then again, these kind of things, like if you're just scrolling Instagram and you see D23's post, it's just going to automatically play. If you have the sound on, granted, it takes a few minutes.
I was going to say, I've never once gotten Instagram to play a sound when I wanted it to.
Fair. but it does play sounds when you don't want it to. So
yeah, of course, that's how it works.
Right.
And
Exactly.
then if you get it on, then it's going to pause or it's going to go do something else. And
Right.
yeah,
Exactly. Of
it's
course. Yeah.
never good.
Yeah. But let's talk about some of the points from this Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, which I do have a full breakdown of it on laughingplace.com that you can check out. But a few of the fun things I wanted to talk about here. One, there was a nod to Rob Liefeld, who I think you saw at a con, right? Did you see him at C2E2?
Yeah, C2E2 a couple years ago, maybe even twice. I've seen him and Chris
Claremont.
Yes.
Yeah, who has a lot to do with Wolverine. So there you go.
There you go.
But Rob Liefeld is mentioned kind of in the background of on a shop, and it's Liefeld's Just Feet. And it's kind of funny, kind of poking fun at the fact that he's the comic book artist who always struggled to draw feet. So I like that they threw that in there. We get a lot of, they don't mention her by name, but we talked about this, I think, in the last episode. Cassandra Nova, who seems to be the big bad of this movie. We learned about her through a copyright filing for the movie, which was the weirdest way to get news about a Marvel movie. But we see a lot of her in this trailer, and she seems like a really formidable villain. Looks really awesome. So it was cool to see that. We do also get to see more of Alioth. I don't think there's any denying it anymore. Like that is 100% Alioth, the cloud creature that we saw in Loki. We see it kind of chasing them down like a desert road at some point. We see a giant Ant-Man suit that then opens up and is revealed to actually be Ant-Man, like a Ant-Man skull. I guess I keep saying Ant-Man, but Giant Man really is because he's gigantic and he's being used seemingly as the base of operations for Cassandra Nova. So you get that really cool shot of the skull opening up and her walking down the steps out of Ant-Man. So pretty cool. That same shot, actually, we get to see a whole bunch of, you have to look carefully on this one, but there's a whole bunch of X-Men villains from the previous films. Everybody's favorite Toad, he's in there. We knew Aaron Stanford was reprising his role as Pyro already. You can see him in there too. Sabretooth is in there. Lady Deathstrike, Azazel, probably the most recognizable one, the red. A lot of people saw him and thought, "Oh wow, Mephisto was in this trailer." Like I'm not going to fall for that.
Not this again, yeah.
Not this again. No, so that it was Azazel from X-Men First Class. So you see a lot of familiar faces. I guess I use the term faces pretty loosely because you don't really see their faces all that much, but you see their figures kind of thrown into the trailer pretty quickly. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is the closing shot, really, of this trailer, which is Deadpool and Wolverine jumping to safety, seemingly, into what looks to be a Doctor Strange portal. So, I mean, quite literally jumping into the MCU there. So I did see a fun theory about that specific shot, that they might be jumping into the Battle of Earth in Avengers Endgame. They are going to show up in one of the portals, which would be amazing. If they are actually there, but maybe Wolverine jumps into the fight and Deadpool's just like, no, I'm just going to leave. That would be a perfect fit for those characters.
Maybe he gets kicked out of the women assembly.
That's actually, that was another thought I had, actually, because Jess and I just watched Avengers Endgame for the 100th time the other day. And when we saw that scene, I was like, this would be the perfect spot for Deadpool to show up. And like, don't worry, she's got help. And he just comes in and takes that line. That would be amazing. So yeah, that was the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. I'm so excited. We're just, a couple month and a half away from that movie now. So I don't know, any other closing thoughts on that trailer?
Not really. It was definitely a lot of fun. And
have you watched Deadpool 2 yet?
No. I thought I looked it up. I thought Once Upon a Deadpool was streaming somewhere, but now it must have been gone again. But
it was, yeah. I think it released on Hulu back when it first came to streaming, but I guess not anymore.
I mean, I now if I'm gonna do it, I kind of want to do both just to see. But I did recently when we were in Chicago for C2E2, Deadpool was on I guess the HBO or something because it wasn't censored, and so yeah, saw the last half of that again. So that was fun. Forgot that Gina Carano was in it.
Yeah. Yep. She certainly is. That's another conversation we don't need to go into. Real quick though, I will mention too, because we both kind of stumbled across this in the last couple of days. The description for Deadpool 2 on Disney Plus is fantastic. It's simply the sequel to the first one. So you can see that on Disney Plus right now. Let's jump to another MCU movie because we got some news about Captain America Brave New World. And Alex...
Lots of news.
Yeah, well, yes and no. A few weeks ago, CinemaCon was going on, and Alex was there for Laughing Place. And he got to see a clip from Brave New World. And I'll just read you his description real quick. President Ross stands in the middle of a dark room, a protective barrier of glass separating him from everyone else. Sam is present as the president discusses the successful mission in Mexico that Sam and Joaquin Torres carried out. During the meeting, the speakers are taken over by distorted music from the 1940s. It triggers another attendee, Isaiah Bradley, who we met in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Who suddenly rises and carries out an unseen order to attack the president. He overpowers a guard and uses his gun to break the glass as Ross is rushed out of the room. Sam chases Isaiah, who escapes by leaping out of a window. So interesting that Isaiah Bradley has a big role to play, seemingly, in this movie. And then today we got some insights, I guess we'll say, from the director, Julius Ona, I think, is the director of Brave New World. And he pointed out some interesting stuff about, I guess, the villain of the movie, one of the villains maybe. And that would be the leader, aka Samuel Stearns. And he says Sam finds himself almost standing between Samuel Stearns and what he thinks the government owes him and how he wants to go about getting that. So kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what to expect from the villain in this movie. Samuel Stearns, you might remember, played by Tim Blake Nelson. We met him in The Incredible Hulk in the year 1943, seemingly. It was so long ago. So, yeah, it's cool to see that character coming back. Cool that we're getting such a major, Marvel villain in this movie. So I'm looking forward to that.
But the more important news from that movie.
Yes. Well, first, I want to point out too. This movie comes out February 14th, 2025. We are still a ways away. So
it was originally supposed to open well, I don't know. Originally is loose, but this month.
Yeah, that is fair. And is that the case? Like that? Okay, so let's just say, Brave New World Happy Meal toys are available at McDonald's right now. Is this the furthest in advance Happy Meal toys have been released ahead of a movie?
I think Hoodwinked 2. There's a whole story there about how I forget exactly what happened. I think it was Hoodwinked 2, where that got way delayed or whatever, but they were already too far down the pipeline. We did see something similar with the Marvels, but even that wasn't as big a gap as this is.
So there were no Happy Meal toys for the New Mutants. That didn't get a line.
No, that would have been funny.
So the Brave New World, Captain America Brave New World Happy Meal toys that are available in McDonald's right now. There's Captain America in Flight, Diamondback, Falcon, Red Hulk, Red Wing, Captain America's Shield, and Ruth. Ruth is the hero known as Sabra. So those are.
So the way that I got those names is you used to be able to hover and we kind of give you the names. They have a little on the Happy Meal site, a little video for each of them. Yeah. And in the first 7, you can clearly see the name on the tags. I watched the Ruth one closely and could not see the tag, but in the image URL, there was the Ruth, and all the others kind of matched up to that. So that's where I'm getting that from. It's probably right, but it is also interesting. I don't know if they purposely obscured the tag on that one, but
maybe there's more information to that character that they aren't allowed to put out there. But that character is pretty much out there at this point. People have talked about the hero known as Sabra having a role in this movie. So you can get those Happy Meal toys at McDonald's now. I haven't gone. I haven't gone to. Usually I do. I run out and grab one of the toys, and we post a picture on Laughing Place and everything. But
Well, it still says coming soon, and our boss tried to go, and he wasn't able to get one. But I've seen other people get them, so it might be hit or miss. You might want to wait like a week anyway.
Interesting. Okay, a soft rollout of Captain America.
I do love the little commercial though. If you go to the Happy Meal site, there's one where the kid's just going on and on about all this nerdy stuff, and then meets someone. He's like, "Hey, it's new Falcon," and she's like, "Yeah, it's the one that he gave his." I don't even remember the number of the wings that.
I don't remember the number, so yeah, it's yeah, it reminds me a lot of if you've ever seen the Mitchells versus the Machines. Great movie, highly recommend. But yeah, there's some a moment in there that is reminiscent of that. We got some new information about Marvel Studios' Infinity Saga concert experience at the Hollywood Bowl, which this sounds just awesome. I am kind of bummed that I won't be able to get out there to see it because the concert will take place August 30th and 31st at the Hollywood Bowl. It's going to take the first 23 films of the MCU and turn it into an all-new, a brand new score, which I guess is probably not the right terminology for that, but it's creating a live-to-picture experience based on those iconic scores. The bowl shell, which I've never heard it referred to as that before, but the bowl shell will also feature mapped projections to further immerse fans in the MCU, which sounds so cool. I got a chance to see Black Panther in concert at the Hollywood Bowl. It was an awesome experience. So if you get a chance to check this out, tickets go on sale Tuesday, May 7th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So by the time you're listening to this, you still have a little bit of a wait, so you can be ready to go. It sounds really cool. I'd love to get the chance to check this out, but I don't know. Kyle, maybe you should get out there and check it out.
Maybe. I've been to the Hollywood Bowl twice. Once was for a Beauty and the Beast thing, so where they played most of the movie, but then when there was musical numbers and they had live actors and
very cool
dancers and stuff. The other time was my friend used to work at the Hollywood Bowl, so she got me free tickets, and I saw Florence and the Machine and The Weeknd.
Wait, what?
the Weeknd was opening for Florence and the Machine. That's how long ago this was.
Yeah, can you remember what year this was?
I mean, it would have been like circa 2011, 12.
Okay. That's a really cool concert to see and an awesome venue. So that's a score for those free tickets. I do want to point out a comment from Michael James here. Haven't watched all three, or haven't watched the new episode of X-Men 97 because I'm waiting for all three parts of the finale. So I'll just give you a heads up now. When we do get to that portion, which we have a couple little pieces of news to touch on still, we will put a banner up that we will be discussing spoilers for X-Men 97. So keep that in mind.
Actually, I also want to point out that gives me a good segue. Mentioned I was at C2E2. One of the panels was Jason Mewes came out before, and then Kevin Smith came out with him later. But Jason was talking about how he wanted to binge X-Men 97, but because he was going to be flying, he decided to download some and talked about how much he was enjoying it and how the theme song just brings him back to his childhood and stuff.
That's
and I was
awesome.
like, yep, I can relate.
Yeah.
And a lot of the voice cast was also not even in like the autograph section of the show. They had like their own section in the middle of the show floor. So you'd just be walking by and Cal Dodd was just there talking to people.
That's awesome. How recognizable were they though? Do you think did a lot of people like swarm them or?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say swarm. They seem like they were always talking to someone because actually Becca wanted to go talk to Allison about something unrelated to X-Men. And there was always someone there, so she didn't feel like bothering. But they kind of promoted the signage and stuff like that.
Okay, gotcha. All right, a few other pieces of news before we get into our X-Men 97 discussion. But Paul Walter Hauser has joined the cast of the Fantastic Four. So often we're bringing up this casting news and we're not familiar with the actor's work. I actually am this time. I watched Apple's Blackbird. He is, it's hard to say like the villain in that, but he's just fantastic as a creepy, just uncomfortable sort of character. And then in Apple's The After Party, a comedy series, completely flips a 180. He's absolutely hilarious. So I'm excited to see what he does in the MCU. I saw the rumor floated around out there that he could be portraying the Mole Man, which would be pretty cool. An interesting villain to include, the first villain of the Fantastic Four, going back to 1961. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, sometimes the Marvel villains and some heroes start to sound like mystery men.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, we'll have one to talk about in one of these episodes of X-Men 97 for sure. Other Marvel news that I think we care less about: Kraven the Hunter was delayed from August to December 13th, 2024.
You didn't see that coming?
It's well done. But no, so December 13th is when you can forget that Kraven the Hunter is in theaters. Last bit of news before we get into X-Men 97. I saved this for the segue into our conversation, but there was a really fun little bit of marketing, more or less, released by Marvel a couple days ago, where they just tweeted out an image of a cell phone with Jubilee's name stickered on it and a phone number. Of course, you can call that phone number. You get a voicemail from Jubilee saying, "This May, we're going to invite mutants like you to stay in the X-Mansion." No other information other than that was it. And then a few hours later, we learned of Airbnb launching their whole, which I guess it was like it's already launched before, but now they kind of relaunched it. What is it called? Icons?
I think so. I don't know if these are all new additions to that program or whatever.
Right.
But yeah,
but
so
they kept saying like introducing Icons, like it was a brand new thing, and whatever, it worked. So the X Mansion is one of the things you can stay at. Disney fans too, or Pixar fans specifically, you can stay in the Up House too, which was pretty cool, and actually like lifts up on a crane, which seems incredibly dangerous. But
like, hey, you better strap into that couch.
I'm sure it's safe, don't get me wrong, and I would do it, but the X Mansion is way more up my alley than that one. So that is you can't book it. You have to submit basically an application to then hopefully be chosen, and there's only dates throughout the month of June, and really only the first half of June. So if you can't go in one of those windows, you're kind of out of luck there. But there's video of it. There's plenty of pictures. Again, you can check it out on lifeandplace.com. It looks awesome. It is like you're stepping into an animated world. All the art around you takes on that form. It looks really, really cool. So I highly recommend checking it out. And why not submit an application? Maybe you can go up to New York in June and check it out. Did you submit for a chance, Kyle?
I didn't. But maybe
the Airbnb icons. Yeah, it looks really cool. We'll see. We'll see if I get chosen. All right, let's dive into our long, and we'll try and trim it down as much as possible, X-Men 97 discussion. Like I said, we have 3 episodes to catch up on, one of which is part 1 of a 3-part finale. So we have a lot to break down here. So let's start off with Life Death Part 2, the continuation of the small, intimate story of Storm and Forge in a cabin against an owl demon. And oh no, this is a space battle. That was how this episode started. Just in space, a war between the Kree and the Shi'ar. Not what I expected at all. But kind of along the lines of what they did with the first part of Life Death, which included the Motendo episode. So I don't know. What did you think of the space action that we got to start off this episode with?
Yeah, so I'm always reminded that for what I perceive to be a kid show, I'm like, how do I not understand what is happening? Like, I know that I'm not paying the most of attention as I could. I think partially that's your fault, because I was trying to think of crossovers between social media and Disney attractions while watching these episodes. But that being said, I was a little confused. I did like some of the things in this episode, like some schoolroom things made me laugh.
Yeah. There was some stuff. No, it was cool though that we got to see Ronan the Accuser, who obviously we know from Guardians of the Galaxy. He played a big role in the beginning of this episode. But yeah, it was just it caught me way off guard. And to your point, actually, talking to some of my friends who are more casual Marvel fans, this episode seemed to fall a little bit flat for them, because it was so much just, here's all these other crazy characters that you've never heard of, and you have no idea what's going on in this story. I think by the end of the episode, it kind of brought you around a little bit. Like, it still told a conclusive story, or cohesive story, I should say. But it was a lot to take in. especially when you're expecting a very different episode. But the whole point of this story, which I even like looking back at my recap, I call the Storm story the A story, and this space one the B story. It kind of almost feels flipped because this space story involves the return of Charles Xavier. So remember, to the people of Earth, Charles Xavier was dead. He was killed by Henry Gyrick. But for those of us who watched the original animated series, we know that ended with him going up into space with the Shi'ar because they were able to keep him alive. So that's where this episode picks up. He is with whatever her full title is, Empress Magistri Lalandra. And so she is going to marry him, and he's going to, have a hand in ruling the Shi'ar Empire, which doesn't go over so well. So that's sort of the story there. And again, we get to see a lot of cool characters: Ronan, Gladiator, Deathbird. So some fun characters for those of us who were familiar with the original animated series, and even just the MCU in the case of Ronan. But we also get the quote unquote A story, which is Life Death, title of the episode. Storm coming to terms with losing her powers. Now Forge has been attacked by the adversary, this owl, or this creature or demon that is manifesting itself as an owl. So you've got Storm trying to care for Forge. I liked that they had Forge using some magic, some mystic arts in there. So that was pretty cool. Was that one of those like Leo pointing at the TV moments for you?
Yeah, a little bit.
I love when they kind of, and there's a few moments in these episodes that we'll talk about that they kind of hint at the MCU a little bit. And Forge does mention that his mother learned, I think he called it desert magic, and he does wield some magic in the comics. So I like that they pulled off of an actual character trait from the lore of the character. Xavier, back to the space story. So Xavier agrees to have his mind erased, and not in the fun way of, for reasons that the Shi'ar impose on him in order for him to become whatever title they choose to bestow upon him. But he refuses to, or at least is reluctant to, renounce his X-Men. And then that sparks a whole fight between the Shi'ar. And then Xavier just takes him to school, and we go into that school, like classroom on the astral plane, which was cool. That was a fun bit of Xavier treating these like space gods like school children.
Yeah.
It's so hard to even retell this episode because you bounce back and forth so much, but Storm does eventually get the best of the adversary. They are looking for a specific cactus in a cave, which is super convenient because of Storm's claustrophobia. So she has to go into this dark tunnel where she comes face to face the adversary again. And she wins via willpower, I guess, is the lesson of this episode. And we see her emerge with her powers returning. She has the classic black costume on, the white costume that we know from the animated series. So it was really cool to see Storm return. They've been an awesome Can you hear me okay?
Now I can hear you.
Oh, well, now, yeah, there we go.
I thought it was my headphones.
Yep,
I was about to go grab new headphones.
Nope, it did cut out on me. But yeah, I think we're good now. So I was just saying they did a really cool job of the music with Storm. I can't wait to listen back to this whole soundtrack whenever we get a chance to do that. But so yeah, some really cool stuff with Storm in this episode. And then that kind of, except one last scene that kind of wraps up the story for Storm in this episode. We then go back to space, or the astral plane, where Xavier is teaching class, and he is interrupted by then seeing what has happened in Genosha. And pretty cool, like everything, like, again, like very like Terminator 2, everybody just gets vaporized as skeletons. So they
the big Gambit, and then it's just
like so yeah, and then we also see Storm sees the news reports of what's happened in Genosha. So you expect Storm to return very soon, and then Charles Xavier ends the episode by saying it's time for him to return to Earth. But then we actually do get not a post-credit scene, but like it cuts to black, like, oh, that's definitely the end of the episode. And then we get a scene of Bolivar Trask, the guy who created the Sentinels, or one of them at least, running. And then we see him get blasted, and we look up, and it's Mr. Sinister. Seems like he's the one that's been pulling the strings. Trask shows a little humanity, and he begs to be killed for what he's done, for his hand in Genosha and what happened there. And of course, Sinister refuses. So there was an interesting moment too there, because Trask is talking to somebody we don't see yet, and this storyline in the comics, the villain for the adaptation at least is Cassandra Nova. So I was half expecting her to show up there, and I thought maybe even this is going to play into Deadpool and Wolverine. But yeah, so it was interesting to see Mr. Sinister there, and in the moment, I even have my recap on Laughing Place right now. You can go back and check out. I said, looks like we have our big bad. Mr. Sinister seems to be the one pulling all the strings. This is his plan. And we learn within a week or so that was not the case necessarily. So that's it for that episode, Life, Death, Part 2. Anything on that, Kyle, before we move on to Bright Eyes?
I will say that one definitely was the most confusing and kind of out there of the three that we watched for this week. And so yeah, starting this next episode, it was like, okay, now I feel like I'm back on track. Like it felt like I missed something, because I'd been a few weeks since I'd watched the show and then watched these 3 episodes, and it was like, do I need it? Like I'm watching the previously on. Also wanted to mention that I think so. We saw Nightcrawler in like one of the scenes in the intro in a previous episode, but I think this was the first time he was like actually in the opening, and he wasn't in the episode.
Yeah, it's true. Unless maybe he had like he's in the background where they're showing the, I don't know.
Maybe, but yeah, I was excited to see him back in the opening credits, and then he wasn't in the actual episode.
Yeah,
at least not very much.
No, they have been doing that though, where they're like introducing a character or reintroducing a character, and then the next episode they get their title card. And actually, they've removed Gambit's title card, and they removed Magneto's title card. So it is. I like the way that they're doing that and changing up the intro every week.
And then some of the scenes, like we talked about how those changed. It feels like now there's some that have been in a few of them, but then they keep swapping out other stuff. It's very interesting. It's quite the art. I haven't. Yeah. I want to like sit there with the stopwatch and figure out how they're making all these things last as.
Yeah. No, I will agree though that I think this was probably the weakest episode in the series so far. And it even like it didn't even really dawn on me until I was putting together our show doc for today's show and kind of going through my recap and going back through this episode and thinking, wow, this really got away from what the show is in every other episode otherwise, which is sort of this really cool mystery of like, you don't know who the villain is, and they have this big mysterious evil plan. And this is just like space war. So it kind of gets away from that. But it did so in a way that it was restricted to half an episode, more or less. It got the story to where it needed to be in terms of having Charles Xavier come back, without taking over too much of the season. So I do like that. But yeah, let's move on to episode 7, which was titled Bright Eyes. And kicks off which that is probably the least explanatory title.
There wasn't a single Connor Oberst cameo. I was so disappointed.
I mean, you had to know I'm not going to get that reference.
I don't even like Bright Eyes.
So the episode opens with Gambit's funeral after the events on Genosha.
Maybe there's a turnaround. Turnaround.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We did just have the total eclipse, so it makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. You got any other ones? Any other lyrics you want to?
I'm sure I could, but we're good for now.
The floor is yours. No, so we open up with Gambit's funeral. We see many of the X-Men there, notably not Rogue, but we do see some other characters as well, including Gambit's brother, Bobby LeBeau, and the members of the Guild of Thieves, which was Gambit's running buddies before sort of doing a 180 and becoming an X-Man and a hero. He was a villain before that, so a nice nod to the character's past there. And the whole plot of this episode basically is that Rogue is. Do you want to drop your line there?
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. This episode, yeah. The alternate title was Rogue Goes, well,
Yeah, she kind of goes on a rampage and is seeking justice for what happened to Gambit. She seems to have forgotten Magneto. Like there was a very intense romantic relationship with Magneto before this all happened, and now it's all just like I want to avenge Remy. So she is flying around, just kind of wreaking havoc on anywhere she goes. She attacks a military facility in the desert, meets Thunderbolt Ross, who she clearly knew already. They had some sort of rapport. And Ross even name checks the Hulk, so that's pretty cool. But she's on the search for Trask and Gyrick, the creators of the Sentinels, and so you get the idea of where that whole story is going with her. One interesting sort of bullet point we got from this, and I guess it kind of started a couple weeks before that, but we sort of see the interesting relationship between Beast and Trish Tilby, the reporter, and it seems like there is like just a small element of romance between the two of them, but there's also this tension that I think is really well handled until it completely blows up in the most recent episode, which we'll talk about later. But so I like that this is a relationship that exists in the comics. So I do like the way that they handled it, because it's not something, you're not going to take an episode to explore these two characters. So do it in these little ways, here and there. So I thought they did that really well. We saw a trailer a few weeks ago letting us know that Captain America was going to show up in this show. And sure enough, there he was. I think like maybe one episode after that trailer was released. So cool little Easter egg, though, before we even really get into meeting Captain America. You see his motorcycle has the license plate AVN-A10. That is a reference to Avengers Annual number 10, which was the first comic book appearance of Rogue. So pretty well done there. Nice little Easter egg. And then you see Rogue and Captain America sort of reluctantly team up to explore this abandoned military base where they discover OZT is this mysterious organization. In the comics, OZT stands for Operation Zero Tolerance, which is a plan run by a certain villain that we'll talk a whole lot more about later on. But yeah, so then I really like the moment of tension you get between Rogue and Captain America, where she, he says, "My hands are tied. If your hands are tied, then you won't be needing this." And she just throws his shield seemingly into orbit. So I liked the dynamic between these two characters.
While we were there was like a whole thing on TV. So we rewatched No Way Home, or no, well, also No Way Home, but Far From Home, and Cappy. How does Cap do this? That's what I thought of when she throws his shield.
That would have been really funny if she tried to throw it and it just kind of fell a few feet away. But no, I do like the dynamic between those two characters. I thought that was really well handled. I also like that they treated it like they have a history. It's not these characters meeting for the first time. They know each other. There's a well-established rapport between the two of them. So, and Captain America made an appearance in the first X-Men the Animated Series. He was in an episode with Wolverine, so he has a history there.
He's still got the like winged hat.
Yeah. And it is, we talked about this, I think, in the last episode, where we didn't know if this was going to be Steve Rogers. Is it going to be Sam Wilson? It is very much Steve Rogers, and it is Josh Keaton, I believe is the actor's name, the voice actor who does voice Steve Rogers in What If. So I like that they carried that over as well. So cool stuff with Captain America there. On Genosha, we see the X-Men trying to help to find survivors, and we meet one of those Mystery Men-esque characters very briefly. We meet Strong Guy, big muscle guy. That's pretty much it. The extent of his powers. He is strong. He's strong, and he is a guy. So call him Strong Guy. We also saw him very briefly in a previous episode, actually in the first Life Death episode, where you're kind of getting a little bit of Forge's history. As a member of X Factor, Strong Guy can be seen in one of the photos with Forge from his past. So just another fun mutant to throw in there. We also met Amelia earlier in this episode too, just another mutant with, sort of like healing powers, I believe. Very small character, but I like that they keep throwing these characters in there. Like, this show is just littered with different Marvel characters, so they throw them in a lot.
Yeah, we'll see more as we talk about other episodes.
Yes, we will. A couple of big ones actually. Rogue does get a hold of Henry Gyrick, and she absorbs I keep struggling with Rogue's powers, because it used to just be like she would absorb the life force and a touch would kill somebody. She's now absorbing memories and seeing like what's going on by touching Gyrick. And she gets a glimpse of a man's face, followed by a glimpse of Nimrod, the futuristic sentinel that the X-Men have fought in the animated series in the past, in the future. So yeah, you kind of get the idea that there's something going on here with Nimrod and Sentinels in general. So, but they don't really give us answers just yet. Back on Genosha, then we see, Jean gets a sense of another psychic that's alive somewhere in the rubble. Cyclops is, excited at the thought that it might be Madeline Pryor, but then they instead rescue Emma Frost, who comes out in her diamond form, which was interesting to me that they decided to introduce her diamond form now and like specifically point out she's never done that before. Like, this is a new thing for her. I'm like, weird to highlight that, I think, unless you're going to have her come back in future episodes.
I mean, you got to make new pop somehow.
What?
Pop figures.
Oh, pop figure. Oh. I just heard pop. I was like, make what pop? What?
No, you need new pops somehow.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. Yeah. If you're going to sell an Emma Frost one, you got to sell the diamond variant. So,
oh, money. Okay.
Oh, right. Money. I love Emma, by the way. She's one of my favorite X-Men characters. So I would love to see her come back in the future. She has a great line here too, very quickly, where she's, became a diamond. She says, "I was always great under pressure." Fantastic.
And so wait, if she's in her diamond form, does that make her Emma Stone?
I struggle with that all the time. Anytime I'm thinking Emma Frost, I write Emma Stone and vice versa. So I'm glad you brought that up. I feel seen. As the X-Men are working in Genosha, they get a message from Trask, who tells them to come to Madripoor. Which I love that they, name drop Madripoor again. That's becoming more and more frequent. It seems like it'll have a role either in this show or in the MCU going forward. We'll see. There is also sort of a C story, I suppose, in this one, which is Jubilee getting Roberto to admit to her or his mother
to come out, basically.
That is
really play up that analogy.
Yeah, no, they definitely do, and it kind of plays out over 2 episodes too. So you do see them go back to New York. Roberto tells his mother that he's a mutant, and she says, like 3 of our apartments caught fire in the last 3 years. It was not a surprise to us, but she does want to keep it a secret for, for the sake of the family's company, because they don't want, that PR out there that they're, siding with mutants or anything like that. So there is sort of this tension that builds and carries into the next episode. The X-Men get to Madripoor, and I love the secret vending machine door that they have to open to get to where Trask is.
Really, you got to hit one of 8 buttons. It's really difficult. Nobody else gets diet soda.
Yeah, nobody else ever ordered a diet Pingo Doce and accidentally opened up this secret layer.
Open the door. The door is opening.
Well, it's been a while since we've had a community reference. It's probably been 3 weeks. We did you catch that, by the way, that the soda is Pingo Doce?
No, I know, but that makes sense.
Yeah, so Pingo Doce is the soda from the Incredible Hulk that we see Stan Lee drink in his cameo in that movie, and then you can actually drink Pingo Doce in Avengers Campus in Disney California Adventure. So there you go, fun little Easter egg in there.
It's a crystal.
Oh, somebody has to have edited that, right? That has to be out there.
I hope so.
If not, we got to get on that. I feel like we'll be late. That's kind of our style though, with the Zzzax of Life handle on Twitter. If you're not following at Zzzax of Life Pod, we tend to make those jokes like a week or two before or a week or two after they're dead. So that's if you like that, then head over there. Gyrick, by the way, has an altercation, if you can even call it that, with a mystery man, a new villain emerging, who very creepily comes in. And I didn't realize you hadn't watched this episode, by the way, when I texted you at like 2 a.m. Hong Kong time and said, my brain is just playing Purple People Eater on a loop and I can't sleep. So that probably was just completely out of the blue.
I don't know what happens over in Hong Kong. That's so weird. I don't know. I'm the type of person who would just, I listen to a lot of 50s and 60s music on Spotify. It makes sense that Purple People there might come up. You never know.
Well, so this new mystery villain, like I said, very creepily plays this song and then sneaks in on Gyrick and kills him, chokes him to death.
And if this were a movie, then we'd get the Lana Del Rey cover in the the end credit scene.
That has to exist, right? Maybe not Lana Del Rey, but like a creepy version of that song. I got to find that now. We'll cut that together too. We got some work to do after this. Yeah, that was a fun introduction to this new villain. So I liked the way that they did that. But then we go back to Madripoor and we see that Trask is struggling with everything, still going off of the last episode where we saw him still struggling with what happened in Genosha. He tries to give the X-Men as much information as he can to sort of right his wrongs. And then he's going to jump to his death. And Rogue grabs him. Rogue, again, still sort of rampaging through this episode, grabs him and tries to get any last second information out of him. He says, "I have nothing else." And she says, "Okay." And that's it. And she drops him. And, there's sort of the shock on the face of all of the X-Men, except for Wolverine, who's of course just like, yeah, good. He got what he deserved. But yeah, so there's this really intense moment of like Rogue not being a hero. And so there's a cool dynamic there with these characters. And then we get just everything goes crazy because Trask comes back to life as what we now know to be a Prime Sentinel. He is taken over by a machine and he attacks the X-Men. He takes Rogue out with one shot, as Cyclops points out, and he keeps just wiping out the X-Men easily until Cable steps in to save the day, drops an EMP, which you would think sort of common sense, take out machines using EMPs for years when fighting the Sentinels. But they take care of that one Prime Sentinel. Cyclops sees Cable for the first time in this series and suddenly knows the truth. He realizes that's Nathan, that's his son. I like the moment too, very briefly, where Jean tries to say something to Cable and he says, "You're not her." I thought that was, like kind of a throwaway line, but really powerful if you let it sink in. So that was an interesting ending to the X-Men's story in this episode. But there's still a little bit to go here. And we see Sinister again working for this mysterious villain, who the villain reveals to him that he knows about Charles Xavier. He's showing him a broadcast of him up with the Shi'ar. We also learn that this villain has Magneto, who is still alive, and he is keeping him as a prisoner. Still no information about his plan at all. And we don't actually even get confirmation of his name until the credits, where we see it is Bastion, a long-running X-Men villain from the comics, who has a role in some, kind of very fitting for what this show has been. Excuse me. Some darker comics, some very real world stuff. And so, like you've pointed out a few times now, how is this a kid's show? And
it's not anymore. They're just full on dropping D bombs all over the place.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is adult in this series, and Bastion is sort of the perfect villain for that. I think Cassandra Nova would have been another one, but no complaints at all about focusing on Bastion as the big bad. So that was the end of that episode. He once again, by the way, plays Purple People Eater for Magneto as he shaves him. Very creepy villain thing to do. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this episode?
I like this episode a lot, and then also it seemed very intense that because computer thing at the end had like no characters. You're like, oh no, everyone's gone. But no, it's cool seeing Captain America. You know, it's fun to see Rogue going rogue. And I said the thing. Yeah, so brave. Yeah, no, I thought this was easy to follow. Good for me thinking of jokes to make in random while watching.
Yeah, we have Slack for that. Yeah, no, this was an episode to right the ship, I think. Not that the episode prior was bad, it just was different. And this got back to what the show was. And
as soon as it started, really, I was like, okay, now I'm not completely lost. I know where we are.
Exactly.
This is where I expected the other one to start.
Yes. And this picked up, right after Genosha, really. Like that could have felt like one long episode. So, but I get what they're doing, creating this path for these other characters to come back into the story. So it all makes sense. And it all brings us to
connected, Mac.
It all brings us to part 1 of the 3-part finale that I guess the plan would have been to talk about those 2 episodes in one of our episodes here and then break down the finale in one episode, but things got all Hong Konged. And so here we are.
Let's strike that from the record. That's going to sound bad out of context.
All right. Okay. Retracted. But let's start off with this first part of the finale, which is titled Tolerance is Extinction. And we get an interesting little MCU tidbit right off the bat here, because Cable is explaining to the X-Men that he could not stop what happened in Genosha. He tried several times, and his little technology cube that has made appearances in the comics and the animated series countless times lets them know that they were temporarily pulled from I don't know. Shrimp batter. Pulled away from the moment, and because it was a fixed moment in time, as Beast explains that the sorcerers of Kamertage talk about these fixed moments in time that exist across all timelines and cannot be changed. So nice callback to to Loki, to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, to several things in the MCU. So pretty cool that they included that. Bastion then wastes no time sharing the information that he has with the public, and he televises that broadcast of Charles Xavier with the Shi'ar. So now the public knows that Xavier is alive. It's believed that the mutants have been covering up faking his death in order to garner sympathy. And so Bastion's brewing a war, more or less, between mutants and humans. And so he's actually, I guess, sort of fostering fear in order to get the humans to want to eliminate the mutants. So kind of puts his plan into motion there. I mentioned that the tension in the DaCosta family would carry into this episode. We see more of that. Jubilee is still with Roberto and his family in New York, and she suggests some retail therapy because that's what a mall babe does. And as they head off to the mall to go shopping. There was an interesting little line that felt like a throwaway in here that I wasn't sure. I'm not sure how common knowledge this is. Were you aware that Nightcrawler is the son of Mystique?
I did not know that. I wondered if that was something I was supposed to know. But yes, that definitely perked my ears up.
Yeah, they really just kind of threw it in there quickly. And that is a truth from the comics. And I think they might have mentioned it in the animated series previously, but I'm not certain of that. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting that they decided to throw that in there so quickly. Valerie Cooper, the UN representative, again, still kind of gray on what her title was.
Because the voice is the original Jean Grey.
Right. Well done. I totally made that joke on purpose. We see that she has been working for Bastion, but doesn't seem to be fully informed on what his plan was from the beginning. So she is now reluctant to help him and, what's the word I'm looking for? feels guilty over Genosha and what happened there. So there's a dynamic brewing between those two characters that you kind of see where it's going early on in this episode. By the way, in the previous episode, the X-Men mentioned that Valerie Cooper had not been found alive on Genosha yet. So clearly Bastion got her out of there, as well as Magneto. I like her interaction with Sinister, though, because she comes in and acknowledges, or she points out that he's working for Bastion, and Sinister, in such sinister fashion, says, he's playing his own game. He is well stocked on mutants to experiment on. So he's got exactly what he wants out of Bastion, whether or not this is also benefiting Bastion or not. So I like what's going on with Sinister there, because he is a big bad type of villain. And I think they're leaving the door open for that. So I like what they've done there. Another fun little Easter egg. Trish Tilby shows up again to interact with Beast some more, and brings him coffee from a coffee shop that says on the cup, you see Kate's Coffee. Not sure if this was intentional or not. It could just be like there's a, production assistant named Kate or something. But Kate's Coffee is a location in the comics located across the street from S.H.I.E.L.D.'s New York HQ. So might have been a reference there. The X-Men are investigating Bastion in this episode, and they are going to where they think they're going to his base, and instead it's a very creepy childhood home where his elderly mother is waiting for them silently, just sitting in a chair in a dark room. Everything about this was very creepy. It was weird. You being the more horror averse of the two of us, how did you feel about this?
It's fine. It's animated.
Oh, we've talked about this before. Yeah. Is there a scary animated film out there?
I'm sure that there are. If I was watching it in a theater, it'd be different, because as we've established, I don't like being startled. Like I can do with scary movies at home way easier, because the screen is smaller to look away and it's not as loud.
Yeah, and there aren't any jump scares really in this, so don't have to worry about that. But so that's where the X-Men, or at least that's where Cyclops, Jean, and Cable are in this episode. We get more of Bastion explaining his evil plan, as villains so often do, to Valerie Cooper specifically, and to Sinister. And we see all of these screens around him, and you get what you suppose is sort of these members, and I think even some of them are credited as just like OZT member, so Operation Zero Tolerance. But there are some familiar faces on some of these screens that actually do interact with Bastion specifically. And one of them is Dr. Doom, which loved his line. I don't have it written down for me here, but something along the lines of like, don't mistake Doom's apathy for permission or something like that. That's the most. Doom is just, I don't care about you or what you're doing. I'm doing Doom stuff. And that's pretty much what he says.
Doing Doom stuff.
So I love that. It's so cool to, even in such a small portion of the episode, to have the character be absolutely handled better than he ever has in any live action project. So I love that. Gives me hope for Dr. Doom in the future. The second character that we see is someone who has already made an MCU appearance, and that's Baron Zemo. So that was really cool that he was in there in his comic accurate form with the mask that we very briefly see in the MCU, but with the crown and everything. So very cool that he was in there. He seems more on board with Bastion's plans than Doom does, but that, again, fits the character very well. So really cool, exciting character cameos there, and not even the last ones. We'll get to some more in this episode too. Bastion launches a Prime Sentinel attack that leads to some really awesome action that takes up a good portion of this episode. How did you feel about the action sequences, the multiple action sequences? Did anything stand out to you?
I mean, it's always fun.
Yeah,
I think they do a good job. They don't feel gratuitous.
That's fair. Yeah. No, a few points I wanted to call out. We see Morph as the Juggernaut, which is cool. And it was one of those where I was like, I looked away for a second and looked back up, and I was like, how did Juggernaut get here? Oh, it's Morph.
And in general, I did want to mention that these last two episodes, Morph is like back in full force. He's got some great lines. I'm becoming a big Morph fan. through this
Yeah.
series.
Morph. I always loved Morph in the original series for the little parts that he had. And they've done an awesome job with the character here. He gets to be really funny. He gives you that high pitched laugh, which is great, and and cool in action sequences too. He's become so many other characters. So it's.
I was gonna
really,
say, I've seen your article pop up a few times in top 24. You're gonna have to update that with.
I should update. Yeah, that was after the first, I think, 3 episodes.
Mhm.
So we do need to update all of the characters Morph has transformed into so far. What else do we see in these action sequences? We get Jubilee and Roberto get attacked in the mall, and she throws out the line, "I am totally done with malls," which is fantastic. A nice callback to the very first episode of the animated series where we find her in a mall in an arcade, and then she utters the iconic line, "Does a mall babe eat chili fries?" To which I still don't know the answer. I like that they kind of call back to that. And I think my favorite action sequence in this is, I guess if I'm going to cheat, I'm going to kind of combine two. But we get this fight scene where Wolverine is just falling from the sky, tearing through Sentinels, and then lands back in the mansion and joins Nightcrawler, who is fighting with swords now. And so he uses swords in the comics. We've never seen him use it in animation, at least not in the animated series. So it was really cool to see that. Not only that, but 3 swords, one in each hand and one in his tail, which was awesome. And I also really love that we got the POV shot of like being teleported by Nightcrawler. That's something I don't remember ever seeing anywhere else. So that was really cool. We also got Cyclops, Jean, and Cable escaping in a Porsche out of the Blackbird to give us Fast X-Men. So I really liked the Fast and Furious element we got thrown into the middle of this episode, which was a lot of fun. Also the Cable Cyclops dynamic. Actually, Jean tells Cable like get to the back of the Blackbird, and he says, "Quit bossing me around." It was great. It was just like another great throwaway line. Out of all of that action, we get a lot of fallout here. Nina DaCosta, Roberto's mother, kind of sells him out, kind of throws him under the bus when he crashes into her fundraiser and it becomes public that he's a mutant. And she kind of just like go with those men, and those men are the Prime Sentinels who have been slaughtering mutants. So interesting character choice there. I guess we'll see what happens with the DaCosta family, and if Roberto fully embraces his Sunspot personality. And then we learn that Valerie Cooper, while Bastion is out, enjoying his handiwork, seeing the X Mansion on fire. The X Mansion you can visit, by the way, will not be on fire. At least I hope not.
We hope.
I'm not running the Airbnb, so
I mean that's why there's such a big cleaning deposit, just in case.
Just in case. Yeah, there probably should be some insurance on that building, knowing its history. But yeah, Bastion is out enjoying his handiwork, and while he is out there, he gets a call from a panicked Mr. Sinister, which I thought was hilarious. Who's just like, "She's crazy. She let Magneto go," and so you see that Valerie Cooper has let Magneto out, and so she's going to pay the price. She, Bastion goes and uses his metal powers, which are kind of vague, but kind of like ties her up, and then she monologues because why not? But really, all I remember from that monologue is ending with Magneto was right, and that's such a powerful moment because this is now a human saying Magneto was right to declare war on humans all along. So that was a cool moment. And then Magneto, we see, goes up to, I want to say the North Pole, I guess. One of the poles. I guess it doesn't matter really which one. And he sort of sends a shockwave of magnetism through the planet that shuts down all machines, including all the Prime Sentinels. And as Wolverine points out, this is sort of declaring war. And this is really putting on the war between mutants and humans, which just sparked a memory that I missed something in my notes here. I want to go back. Earlier in this episode, we did get a glimpse of William Stryker on the news in the background. So another character thrown in there very briefly. But that's where this episode brings us, really, is Magneto declaring war against humans. And as you see those shockwaves go out through the planet, we get to see some really exciting character cameos. We see Silver Samurai, another Marvel villain who appeared in live action in one of my least favorite Marvel movies, The Wolverine. We see Omega Red, who is a really cool X-Men villain. Hope we get to see more of him. And we get to see Spider-Man. So I was getting to the point where I was like, okay, that's done. We're not seeing Spider-Man. We saw Captain America. That's what Brad Winderbaum was talking about months ago when he said fans of the other animated series are going to be happy. But no, sure enough, we do get 90s animated Spider-Man. And man, do I hope that means we are getting a revival of his series as well, because that show was so good. So really cool moment. What was your reaction to seeing Spider-Man there?
It was almost like, did I miss him showing up earlier? Do we know about this? And then I'm like, oh no, it's just a tease. Like knowing that this is the first part of a 3-piece. Yeah, I guess there could be a big finale. It's going to include a lot of cool characters. So that's something to look forward to.
I could see that being the case. I could also see us not seeing Spider-Man again. It could just be like they wanted to give a sense of how big what's happening really is, because it's being felt by so many other characters. So yeah, it was interesting to see him there. And hopefully that means we get a revival of that show. But that might be wishful thinking. We'll see. The episode then ends with a ship crashing into the mansion because it wasn't already destroyed enough. And then we see a familiar spacesuit step out, takes the helmet off, and it is Charles Xavier, throws out the line, "To me, my X-Men, one more time for good measure." And there you go. That's where this episode ends.
Right after Wolverine calls his shot and says something about...
Yeah, it's right. Right on cue, yeah. He says, like, where's the professor when you need him? There he is. So yeah, I mean, this could not have set the stage any better for the finale, which we still have 2 episodes, which that feels crazy, actually. This feels like it should have been a second, like there should only be 1 episode left. But the fact that we have 2 episodes to tell this story, man, I'm excited. I can't wait to see what happens. Any other closing thoughts on this episode, the 3 episodes, the series as a whole, before we move on to our little game we've got here?
Wow, forgot about the little game. No, I think. Do I need the banner up? I guess.
No, I don't think so. I think we're good. I'll just say I think this finale is going to be really, really exciting. I can't wait to see what happens. I really hope somebody unmuted me just in time to hear me say, "I can't wait to see what happens," and that's it. That's all I heard. As if there's anybody watching still with the banner up and that's muted. All right. Like I said, we don't have a draft today. We don't have much of that cameo. We don't have a whole lot of time left. So I wanted to play a quick game, and that's going to be something I don't have a draft for. So I'll just say, Kyle predicts the X-Men 97 finale. So you might have seen that in the episode title already if you read that sort of thing. Kyle, I have set a few lines for the remaining 2 episodes of X-Men 97, and I want you to simply answer over or under. What do you think will be the total runtime of these next 2 episodes? Over under is set at 76.5 minutes.
Combined, so like 33 minutes each? Are we including all of the credits?
Whatever the listed runtime is on Disney Plus.
Okay, then over.
You're going to take it over. Okay. All right, so over on 76.5 minutes of the... You listening at home, you can play along to this too. See if you beat Kyle in terms of these. We have 5 lines to go through, so it won't take too long. But Kyle, how many new members of the X-Men will we see in these next 2 episodes? So characters we have not seen in the show thus far, who are members of the X-Men at some point in comics. How many will make an appearance in these 2 episodes? The line said 1.5.
1.5? Okay, over.
Okay, I'm gonna take the over. I think that.
So wait, sorry. To clarify, you said new characters that have been in the X-Men, they could be in the animated series, just not in 97?
Yes, but I've not appeared in 97 yet. Okay, so taking the over on 1.5 new X-Men members. How many times is Nightcrawler going to teleport? The line is set at 6.5 times.
Under.
Taking the under on that. Okay, I think that's just a matter of, do we get another long Nightcrawler action sequence? Because if so, then he teleported more than that in that sequence of this episode. But we'll see. How many times will somebody say the line, "To me, my X-Men," in the next 2 episodes, The line set at 0.5. So will somebody say it now?
Okay, does it have to be To Me, My X-Men, or can it just be My X-Men?
I would go To Me, My X-Men, the whole iconic line that has been said 3 times in this show already by 3 different characters. So,
okay,
will somebody?
Yeah, over.
You're taking over. Okay. All right. So, and then our last line here: how many significant character deaths will there be in these 2 episodes? So we're talking about characters whose names we know, who have had a role to play in the show, and we confirm that they are killed in these episodes. Well, I confirm in terms of like maybe they come back in the future, but for now we know they're dead. The line set at 1.5.
Okay. Under.
Take it under. Okay. I think I like that too because I mean we've already had the Gambit moment, and then we thought Magneto. So I'll recap this real quick. Kyle's taking the over on 76.5-minute runtime. The over on 1.5 new X-Men members. The under on 6.5 Nightcrawler teleports. The over on To Me, My X-Men on 0.5. And the under on 1.5 character deaths. So play along at home, like I said. Let us know how you do, what your thoughts are on those lines. And we'll see how Kyle does after these next 2 episodes. So I think our plan now is back to what our plan was. Hopefully things stay lined up like we'll want to. And we will talk about these 2 final episodes after they air. So give us 2 weeks. We should be back in 2 weeks. Again, that's the plan. So anything else, Kyle? What am I forgetting here? Be sure to check out laughingplace.com for all your latest Marvel and Disney news in general. What else, Kyle?
Well, I was curious. We mentioned at the top your trip to Hong Kong and the temporary stuff, but just briefly, what did you think of the 2 permanent Marvel attractions there, the Iron Man Experience and Nano Battle?
Yeah, I really like them. Oh, well, I really like Nano Battle. I think my expectations were pretty low, being that was a revamped Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin type of thing. But I thought it was really well done. I don't think I've ever done an attraction like that where it was executed so perfectly. Like I've never felt like the blaster was so accurate, and I could really see where I was shooting, and targets interacted with your gameplay. So I think everything was very well executed. Iron Man Experience was fun. It's Star Tours. It is just a new story for Star Tours. I also had an interesting experience on it because I sat down with my glasses and the lens popped out immediately. So I had to pick up the lens and push it back in there and kind of hold it the whole time. That was just a freak one-off, though. That won't be your instance when you get to experience it. But no, it is cool. It's fun. It's interesting that Jarvis is speaking Cantonese and then Iron Man speaking English. So I like the blend there. Really cool.
Yeah.
Cool,
that's a dynamic that they use in a lot of international rides, where you kind of have one character speaking the native tongue and one speaking English, and they talk to each other in a way that you can kind of figure out what the other person said just in context. And so if you know both languages, it's probably a little redundant, but yeah. So you picked up on that. That's something they use quite a bit, including in Nano Battle too.
Oh yes, yeah, you're right. They do use that. That's one where you don't really take in the storytelling as it's around you because you're so focused on which one of these highest value target that I can shoot at. No, Iron Man Experience is cool. I liked Nano Battle more in terms of what I was expecting, I think. But yeah, they're both great. I really like their quote-unquote Avengers campus, as small as it is. But the character interactions are great. So it still has all of that same magic.
And just a fun fact about Iron Man Experience is that, it opened before they had World of Frozen or the new castle. So they've updated that first flyover, which I think is pretty cool.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. That is cool. Yeah, that's a fun. Actually, I did. I took notice of Arendelle being featured because I was like, this isn't newer than Arendelle. So it is cool they updated that. Arendelle, by the way, awesome. Really cool. I didn't get to do either of the attractions, but just walking in there. I mean, I'm not going to be Frozen fan, but I walked in, timed up perfectly with Let It Go once, and I almost cried. So it was really cool.
I liked your reel, the MCO to hearing the calling, the secret siren. It said, "I'm blocking your call, but not for Mac." He listened.
Yeah. I would say follow me on Instagram to see that. I don't even know what my Instagram handle is, to be honest. So more importantly, follow at Zzzax of Life Pod on Twitter, where normally you can vote in a poll for who you think won the draft. Obviously, we didn't do a draft this time, but next time when we come back, we will wrap up the two finale episodes of 2 of the 3 finale episodes of X-Men 97 and get back to our normal routine of a draft, maybe some help that cameo, all the fun stuff. So thank you guys again. Anything else last minute, Kyle? Cool. All right. All right. Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you real soon.
Bye.
Bye.